don't know how calm and reserved I'm going to be able to maintain myself as a result of reading through this garbage. I'd like to thank Paul Elam, the Happy Misogynist, for bringing this to our attention. And it's sort of like in response to a video commentary by Pine Grove 33. But the focus of attention was on some blog site by some, I don't know the first thing about this woman, except to say that reading through this list that she offered as sort of like a personal examination, I come away with the very, very extremely strong assumption that this is just another in a very vicious long line of nasty, bitter, hate-filled, raging, anti-male lesbians disguising herself and masquerading as a feminist. And this is what I've been trying to tell people. There is a radical difference between what a real feminist looks like compared to these phonies, these fakes, these frauds who go around parading around in the mantle of feminism. True feminism pretty much goes hand in hand with what are known as MRAs, or men's rights activists. They're actually compatible. They are one's yin to the other's yang. That's how you determine and can identify a true feminist out of this endless sea of liars, fakes, phonies, and frauds who usually have a nasty anti-male agenda. And the worst of the worst are these screeching, shrewish frauds, these lesbians, these man-hating dykes, if you will, who put on this facade of being so concerned about women's rights, so concerned about women's issues, so concerned about the protection and the care and well-being of women, and always highlighting the victimization status of women, and doing everything in their power, absolutely everything in their power, to demonize men. So much so that when you get to this list by this, what does she call herself, Eve's daughter, to actually formulate a list of how you can identify that a man is a rape supporter, and is so desperate to ensure that she categorizes all men as being supporters of rape to such an extent that she will actually contradict herself in the very same article that she's posting. I'll give you an example. Here in one instance, she makes the declaration that a man is a supporter of rape if he is anti-abortion. Hear that? Anti-abortion. That means pro-life, or if you will, anti-choice, if you want to stretch the definition to its extreme. But immediately after she states that any man who is anti-abortion, who is against abortion, that identifies him and labels him as a supporter of rape. Immediately afterwards, she makes the following declaration: if he is pro-choice. In other words, bitch wants to have it both ways. She wants to make sure she covers every single base, no matter how contradictory, just so that all men can be identified and labeled as, this is that whole Andrea Dworkin thing. All men are potential rapists. Without stopping and taking into consideration, well, hey, if that's going to be your attitude, then all women are potential false rape claim victims. See, they always want to have it just pointing in one direction. They never want to turn the mirror and look at themselves and say, hey, what's our part to play in this? And so she goes through this whole list, even going through the whole thing about prostitution and whatever. And despite what we know about prostitution, it's all just the man's fault. And if a man supports prostitution, or if a man procures a prostitute, or if a man has any kind of opinions at all about prostitution where he leaves it up in the air to say, well, it's a woman's choice ultimately, whether she wants to do that or not, he gets labeled as a supporter of rape. Does this make any sense to you? I'm going to see how many of these I can go through with before I completely run out of time here, because this is completely off the wall here. So I'm just going to try to make a real brief statement on each of these, see if I can get through them all, because I ain't even bothered to count how many of these there are, but she takes up damn near the whole page. And she has the audacity, the mitigated gall, to ask as her closing statement, quote, "So let's see how many women reading this know at least one male over the age of 18 who does not fit this list. Anybody? Close quote. So we already see where she's coming from. We see the arrogance. We see there's an agenda attached to this. There is no real concern for women and for women's well-being here. She just wants to start a gender war. That's all, nothing more. And you ask me, I strongly suspect that this is another one of those attempts, these fake, phony concern issues that's intended to entice straight heterosexual women or sexually confused women to try to hijack them and to pull them into lesbianism. Because that's the only rational argument that one can make after running across a list like this, which sole purpose is nothing but to demonize men, period. So I'm going to see if I can keep this thing down to the 15 that I want to or not. And if I'm not able to, I'll just shut it down and I'll just let the rest of y'all just read these things on yourselves. I'll leave the link below and I'll let you just experience the madness for yourself and maybe supply some of your own commentary later on. So let me shut up and just go through these. I'm going to begin at the bottom. He defends these actions by saying that some women also engage in them. Well, I have absolutely no clue exactly what she's talking about, so I'm moving on to the next one. He sexually objectifies lesbians or lesbian sexual activity. Duh! And as if lesbians don't sexually objectify lesbians or lesbian sexual activity. He discusses the types of women he finds sexually appealing and or attempts to demean women by telling them that he does not find them sexually appealing. Okay, she discusses the types of men she finds sexually appealing and or attempts to demean men by telling them that she does not find them sexually appealing. Can we work with that? He argues that people or just men have sexual needs. Wake up call, sissy. People do have sexual needs. That's why we have sex. And the only reason that we put a damper on it and we keep it under control is because we have convinced ourselves that as a society we are better off when we have some form of self-control, that we don't run around like uncontrollable animals just knocking up everything in sight or anything of this sort. So we have convinced ourselves that sex is a beautiful thing that should be respected and that should be engaged in where there are two consenting individuals. And usually with the promise of your preceding statement, which is, he promotes the idea that women as a class are happier or more fulfilled if they have children, or that they should have children. Another wake-up call for you, dingbat. Most women will tell you that they are more fulfilled when they actually have children, when they're raising a family. And this includes your corporate women, those who went out in the corporate world because they bought into your loudmouth pseudo-feminist lie that you don't need a man, you don't need a husband, you don't need children, you can be fulfilled by pursuing your career. And women ran out in full mass droves in order to buy into that feminist lie, and the majority of them have said that they have regretted that decision, that they wish that, especially once they start hitting 35, 40 years old and they're not in loveless marriages, or they don't have any marriage partner at all, and they have no children, that biological clock starts ticking, and you hear these women lamenting over the fact that they wished that they could have done it over again, and they would have felt more fulfilled if they had engaged in their traditional roles as wife and mother. So, screeching shrew, you have absolutely no clue, no idea whatsoever what you are talking about. Not saying that there aren't women who don't find fulfillment out there in the career field. I'm just saying they're few and in between. He defends the sexualization or abuse of minor females on the grounds of consent or willingness. Again, let's play reverse the roles. She defends the sexualization or sexual abuse of minor males on the grounds of consent or willingness. And don't you dare try to say that it doesn't happen. We have a woman on Generation Dash X. Um, which one was that? Was that Divine Clown or Jade is Whack? One of those two. That actually put up a commentary, making a demarcation between sexual consent of a minor female versus the sexual consent of a minor male, whereas she totally excuses sexual abuse or a minor male being sexually taken advantage of by a female, but then turns right around and says, don't you dare let it be the reverse. More of that phony, fraudulent, fake concern from lying, bitter, angry, fake, phony, feminist frauds. Because a real feminist would say no jack crap like this, or try to level it down to, never mind, I'm running so out of time, let me get this one in. He defends the physical abuse of women on grounds of consent. I don't think you'll find any man in heaven or on earth except in one of those radicalized... I can't even get started on this without running out of time, so I'm just going to leave this here. I'm just going to leave the link. I'm just going to let y'all look at this crap for yourselves and see for yourselves just how evil these lying, vicious, lesbian, phony, feminist frauds really are. Check this crap out for yourself and understand what we have to fight against constantly. Talented 10th.